Okay, Kentucky Derby 2010. We're starting to look at the continuing on where we left off with endorsement. This is the winner of the Sunland Derby, and obviously that big money race, propelled this horse into the Derby. Coming out of a distorted humor is a sire of a previous Kentucky Derby winner. And if you watch the Sunland Derby, it was a very strong race. This horse is very inexperienced. The horse has 4 lifetime starts. He did finish strong, and I have to respect the horse and his the way he beat Conveyance, because I respect Conveyance. He beat a pretty big favorite in that race who looked like he was going to pass up endorsement when they kind of evened up, and endorsement switched leads and basically completely pulled away from him. Endorsement's working at Churchill Downs, so it's going to be tough to see how he's going to be working out at Keeneland, so it's going to be tough to see how he's coming into the Derby and if he has an affinity for the surface. But I respect this horse. I respect Windstar Farms, and they actually purchased this horse for $450,000. So this is not a homebred. This is a horse that they eyeballed and went after. And I'm not going to take that lightly. I respect that. And I have endorsement with making his run around the turn, depending upon his racing luck, and if he has a decent trip, I think he will be in contention come the 8th pole, turning for the stretch. We'll see how he closes the race off, but he does seem like he has a pretty strong late kick. But the knocks on him are very inexperienced and really hasn't raced against the type of competition he's going to face in the Kentucky Derby. So if they are going to be that close to the early Kentucky Derby pace, I think he gets pounded. But if the horse shows the ability to rate, he may be able to do something, because when he was asked from his jockey at the 16th pole to pull away, he did that decisively. It was a very impressive move to me. So endorsement is a contender in my estimations. Okay, that brings us to the Derby favorite, Escandrea, however you pronounce that. This is a Giants Causeway who was beat a nose in the Breeders' Cup Classic at the track. When you're handicapping these races, especially the Kentucky Derby with a 20-horse field, you cannot predict what's going to happen to a horse. What we have to go by is the race in form and what we've seen. Escandrea has basically dominated these horses that he's contended with as a 3-year-old. And if he runs that same type of race, and everyone else runs the same type of race they've run in the past, I mean, he's just faster than these horses. So if he goes off at 5-2, I love that price to me. And on a superfecta tickets, he's going to have to be keyed on top for budget purposes for me. But I don't think that's the horse that I'm going to try to beat. I think that he runs the style of race that you need to be competitive in the Kentucky Derby, which means he's going to be just off the lead, maybe 5th or 6th as they run through the backstretch. He's probably going to be sitting 4 wide or so. I don't think he needs to be on the lead. I don't think he needs to be coming from too far back. And he just has a power and a grit and determination that is very, very difficult to beat when they turn for home when no one's around. Now, saying that he's going to get that kind of trip is unlikely. He's going to run into trouble in the Kentucky Derby like all horses do. So that's going to be the way to beat him. And I think that, with his running style, I have him taking the lead at the 8th pole, sort of like your Barbaros or even the way Big Brown ran the race. Now, when we get to that stage of the Kentucky Derby, from 1st to 20th is going to be spread out about a 16th of a mile. Who knows? It's going to be spread out so far. There's going to be a lot of tiring horses that are dropping out, and some of the closers are going to be starting to move their way in. And I think at that point of the race, Escandrea is going to be able to kind of power away from the previous front runners that led the race to that point. And that's going to put him in a spot where he's going to be able to save ground. He's going to be able to get to the rail, or maybe 3 or 4 lengths off of the rail. And what it also does is it makes him a target for your dead closers, like your ice boxes, or even I think Looking at Lucky runs the right kind of racing style to have a target and maybe shoot the horse down depending upon the pace. But the way that it looks on paper and what this horse has done to what I figure are pretty good groups of horses he's beaten, I think he's obviously going to be the one to beat. He's going to be the big favorite, but I think he's absolutely a legitimate favorite. And remember, for me, as my father used to say, we bet the toothpick to win the forest. And so for my betting, putting him on top of a superfecta wager, a couple $100 superfecta wager, is while he's the favorite and you don't always want to bet favorites, it's not a bad wager because the payoffs are unbelievable. I mean, you have a chance to, it's like a telephone number. So I will play a couple scenarios where maybe the speed holds up and a scenario where he gets nailed. But if he runs close to his last two races, it's going to be very, very difficult for this field to compete with him. I think he can actually have a resounding victory. So in my system, although he's not number one, he puts up a number 33. And to point out, his sire, according to the Brisnet numbers, his sire is the top sire in the race for breeding horses at 1.25 miles on dirt. So that puts him at top in terms of horses bred for the distance, and he's second in my system with a 33. So we'll see if he's asked in the stretch. Who knows what he can do? We haven't seen the best of him yet. The next horse we're going to take a look at here is Icebox, and Icebox is another horse that I'm somewhat fond of in this race because I feel like there's legitimate speed. You have your Super Savers, your Line of Davids, your Conveyance, and all these horses are showing so much early speed, but they're closing as well, and they're putting up some good numbers. When you take a look at previous derbies that have not as much early speed, it sets up for your early runners or your horses that are coming just off the pace. Well, this year you have a horse like Sydney's Candy, who some say they don't think he needs the lead, but he's obviously run his best races from the front, and I think it'd be crazy to try to get him to do something else. The problem he's going to run into is he's going to run into a number of horses that have run at that speed, and if that's the case, he can be worn down pretty good when they turn for home and the money's on the line. So I think he'll be the second choice, and I think he'll be bet down pretty good. He's going to be a pretty good. He has a pretty good chance to win this race. And Sydney's Candy is number one in my system, but I look at this race similar to the year Giacomo won, where you had so much early speed and legitimate early speed class horses that it's going to be real good for a closer. I think it's going to set up nice for a closer. One note to point out, and I'll go over Sydney's Candy in more detail on the next show here, but that horse set a track record at 5.5 furlongs in his second start. So he's going to be on front. I mean, I don't care what people are saying he can rate. That horse is going to be on the front, and he's going to be tough on the front, but he's going to be running into some horses that have run big numbers. If 85 and a 55 gets in, I mean, it's going to set up for dead closers, and that even makes me like Icebox a little bit more. So we'll start the next show off with Interactive. I know that we don't know if he's going to be in for sure, but we'll start off there.